All right. So, Laurie Goldstein-Warren is a renowned watercolor artist, originally from New York, but now she's based in West Virginia, and I'm sure she'll have some stories to tell you about that. Um, and she's gained national and international acclaim for her realistic watercolor paintings using her signature watercolor pouring technique. And she notes, as like most of us, we were taught in watercolor, to work from light to dark. But by the time she crafted a well-drawn composition, meticulously saving whites, establishing gorgeous lights, she was afraid of ruining the whole thing with an errant stroke, and putting in one of the scariest values on the scale, which is a dark. So she has since learned that the best way to overcome this hindrance to a truly successful watercolor painting is to face those fears head on and go in with the darkest darks first, which is scary for most of us. But she says it's really easy. And after taking a pouring class with another well-known artist a long while back, or not, maybe not that long, who did a pouring technique, but did it from light to dark, she wasn't thrilled with the results and decided she's going to take this under her wing and make it her own. So now she does it from dark to light, and it's really the magic that makes her paintings dazzle when she does that. And she'll talk more about that technique, and that's what we'll be learning in the workshop. She's a member of a number of prestigious societies, American Watercolor Society, Transparent Watercolor Society, and she's been featured in numerous publications, Watercolor Artists, and the Art of Watercolor magazine. She also curated a book titled Her Voice, which I went out and searched for it, and I think it's out of print, but it had a number of contemporary women watercolor or water media artists featured in it, and it looked very interesting. So she's an active instructor. She offers workshops and online courses, as we well know, because we're going to be taking one. But if you love her work after this, you're welcome to go to her website and sign up for some of her other workshops. So thank you, Laurie, for coming here, and take it away.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, everybody. First thing I'm going to do is I need you to spotlight me, Vicki, so I can show my materials.
Will unspotlight me.
I know, I'm trying to.
Thank you. You're doing great. Okay. These are my materials. This is how easy it is to pour right here. First thing is, of course, you need your paints. And see my big, huge thing? There's 5. That's it. So there's Quin Gold, and this is Daniel Smith. Quin Magenta, which you can get from Core or from Daniel Smith. They're both equally as vibrant. Cobalt Blue Deep, this is Winsor Newton. Antwerp Blue, Winsor Newton, and Lamp Black, which is also Winsor Newton. Now, I know there's other blacks, and people are going to say, well, did you ever try this black or that black? I like Lamp Black because it is a warm black. And if you know the history of Lamp Black, it comes from, they used to scrape the oil lamps and get the char off of the oil lamps, and they would make pigment with it. And that's why Lamp Black has that warmth to it, because it's actually from ashes. So, I just love it because you can get a really deep 9, but it's not a dead 9 because it has that little bit of warmth to it. So that's why I chose that one, if you're going to ask. We have our masking. I prefer PBO drawing gum. It goes on like paint. It's every bit as thin as watercolor paint. So you can just paint with it and do whatever you want. You can get thin lines, cover large areas quickly, and it comes off like a dream. You can even use a hair dryer to dry it. So it takes heat really well, as long as you don't like leave it in a car in Texas for, in the summer or something. It won't bake into your paper. So it's a nice masking. Then I just have these I buy these blue brushes on Amazon. They come, I think you get 100 of them for like $50. So like 50 cents a piece. And they're just these little, there's flats, there's rounds, tiny, big, and you can use these for masking. That way they're only 50 cents a brush. So if you do ruin it, you can toss it. Or we're going to talk about in the workshop how not to ruin it. Then now when I do my big sheets of watercolor, my full sheets, I pour the paint. out of one of these. This is like a little Rubbermaid container. I suggest when you mix, you get something with a sealed top that's going to keep your paint good, because this mixture, and you have to use quite a bit of paint to get the darkness I'm looking for, you want that to last. You don't want to have to pour once and then toss it out. You know what I mean? Because you have a little bit left and you just toss it out. If you seal it, this will last up to 6 months. And if you open it, the smell will tell you right away that it's gone bad. But I've had it last 6 to 8 months without any trouble. And I could just throw a little water in it, give it a mix with the brush again, and I've got good pigment. So I have one of these for each color. This is my Quinn Gold, and the other ones are over there holding up my camera. I use them also for that. And then now when I do a half sheet, I don't pour, because if I do, it's all going to go into this mat that I use. It's an, absorbent mat, and I hate waste. I just hate it, because we all know our art supplies are so expensive. So I use pipettes when it's a smaller sheet of paper, and I just go into my bucket. You'll see me do it in the demo, and I just go across the paper and put the paint on. That way I'm not wasting so much. If I was to pour this on half a sheet, first of all, the whole thing would practically go gold. And secondly, it's a waste of paint, because I'm going to be spraying off most of it into this. Oh, something about a whiteboard. Oh, everybody there? Okay. I had a little message here. I don't know why. Okay, so I have one of these for each color, and I keep them sealed. And like I said, it can last months before I have to go back to them again. Then I use just one of these atomizing spray bottles, or it's called a continuous spray bottle, misting bottle. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them from any beauty supply store. And I used to be a hairdresser. That's where I first learned about these. They're just really nice, because you just pump them a few times and they keep spraying. They keep putting out a mist. So this, and it's just the right amount of water. Whereas if you use a pump version of a water bottle, the kind like that your cleansers and stuff come in, it's too much water. So this puts out just the right amount to soften your color, but not wash it all away. And last but not least, well, it's not last yet, but this is a pickup that I use for picking up my, which you'll see me do again in the demo, picking up my masking fluid when it's dry after the pour. And then I rip up paper toweling into a bunch of the little squares like this, and you'll see me use these too, what I use them for. The reason I do this instead of just grabbing tissues or big pieces of paper towel is I can use this ripped surface as a wick to pick up puddles. And all you do is just lay it into the puddle, and you just hold it there. And you'll see me do this in the demo. You don't do this, you don't press, you just hold it there. And when it's done wicking up the paper, when it stops moving, then you take it off and your puddle's gone. There's no mark. So it's a really neat thing when you're trying to pick up excess water. Last, I also use these, and this is very important. It's an old terry cloth shop towel. You can buy at Walmart in the big packs. I put these over my things, because even though these are sealed, when you shake them to mix the paint before you start painting, they can have a little, like if there's a hard piece of paint in the side here, it can leak. So you always want to cover up whenever you're shaking your jars or your Tupperware containers. Okay. That's it. Not a lot of materials, not a lot of colors. It's pretty easy. And let me transition back. Okay. Any questions about the material? Oh, and my paper. I always use for all of my paintings, 140-pound cold press Fabriano Artistico, bright white, for all my paintings. So no matter what I'm doing, whenever what class you take, that's the paper I'll be using. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Laurie. Anything else?
Okay. That's about it as far as materials.
Okay, so because Laurie's bandwidth is so low, we're going to be showing a pre-recorded demo, but you will be there to answer questions. If you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll ask Laurie, at an appropriate time whenever we can. So I will go ahead and start sharing the screen.
Okay, we're gonna get started. Here's the photo we're working on. It's just a picture of a compass and a clock, and I kind of overlapped them with some photography opacity tricks. So anyway, we're going to,
Vicky, Vicky, did you mute yourself or do you have your volume off?
I just texted her, Susan.
Okay. I'm wondering if she put herself on mute.
I did. I didn't know
I
that was
thought
effective.
so.
Sorry. Okay, we're back.
Okay.
paint is going into my absorbent background here. And I'm like, that seems like kind of a waste. So now I use a pipette and I just put on how much I want. Okay. And I have my spray bottle handy. Now we want this to be vibrant and dark. So obviously I'm not going to, like in most cases, people wet down the paper first. I don't do that. I put the color on straight and just keep my spray bottle handy. Okay. Now I'm going to look and see now where I want my center of interest to be. And it's obviously kind of right through here. So I'm just going to kind of put my gold through there. Oh. Okay, see, I'm not rushing. I'm not hurrying. I have my spray bottle now, and I use one of those atomizing misting bottles. Just because I put out a nice fine mist, but they also kind of keep the water moving. If you pump it a little bit, it'll keep spraying. Just looking for any strong lines or anything I don't want. So I'm going to go kind of pour corner to corner, which I tend to do. I rarely pour straight up and down or side to side. I kind of like diagonal designs. Okay. That. There's my first pour. Okay. Now I'm just looking for these stripes. We don't want those. So just kind of soften those with your spray bottle. Don't douse it with water. Just soften the edges. You can see them go fuzzy. I'm not worried about any striping going on in here within these objects. That's fine. Okay. Now I keep these little squares of paper towels handy. If I had big puddles, which I don't really have yet, I kind of just drop them in and let them pick up the excess paint and water. And I'm gonna kind of just dry off. I just want to get some of this water off of this big masked area because when I go in, and plus I'm also killing time because I'm letting the gold settle into the paper. That's what I find a lot of people do with pouring is they pour, then they pour the next color, and they pour the next color, like all in a row. And they wonder why they're coming up with these neutral kind of gray-brown pours. And that is why. You got to give each color a little time to settle in, make their home on the paper. So this kind of kills that time, but it also serves a purpose that we don't want all this paint and water on the masked areas ready to mix with your next color. Because again, you're gonna end up with neutrals. So you want to get not all of it off, just any big puddles of water, any big puddles of the gold color. Okay. And there's not as much space down here, but I'm just gonna kind of check. Just any big drops. Okay. I'm just gonna take the edge, kind of go around and just pick up. Again, see, no rush. I'm not running for my rose already. Oh, by the way, the 3 colors I'm using, I'm sure someone's gonna ask before I get to this, is quinacridone gold deep by Daniel Smith, quinacridone magenta or rose. Either of those are good. I like them both equally. So if you like more drama, go for the magenta. If you like softer palettes, go for the rose. Now I'm going to grab my pipette that I've already rinsed out, go into my rose. I'm sorry, this is my magenta. See, I'm going to keep saying rose because I said it already. Okay, and I'm going to go kind of alongside where the gold is. And to get a little in the middle too, we're not trying to separate the colors perfectly. Clean up my pipette a couple times, so ready. Then we'll start turning again. I always do this before I start spraying water. Get the paint moving first. Okay. Then as you can see, it's getting strong edges. Then you come in with your water. That'd be a good time for my water bottle to die on me. I normally have a spare. I just don't have it filled right now. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, then again, I'm going to pour off the corners. Some of it's going to mix with the gold and give you some nice, oranges and things like that. Now at this point, I'm going to start looking into all these things in the middle. Make sure, because you can just pull some right from the masked area over, get some of that color into some of those middle areas. Don't cover them, but just so that they're mixed. Little on the one. Here, get a little of the 11. Fun, it's like a little finger painting. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, and then especially anything that's got a lot of white left to it at this point, we don't want that inside. These little masked off, I call it, it's kind of like a little dam because it's keeping the paint and the water out from everything that's enclosed around it with masking. So make sure you get that moving. Okay. And again, we're going to go around and clean. Oh, see, there's a dot that didn't get any color in it right above or below the 3. I'm going to take a little off the masking and get it in there. Of course, got some white to it. Keep in mind, this is housekeeping, but it's also giving you something to do because your mind is instantly going to go to, I got to get my next color ready. We don't want to go there yet. Not ready yet. And the reason I tear up my paper towel like this, okay, I see some dry spots down here. Let me turn this up. See these dry spots? And that's another thing while you're doing the cleaning is you can do a little inspection, make sure you're not getting any hard edges you don't want. Middle. At this point, you're going to have more puddles. See this dark rain forming over here, so we're gonna give that a blast. Flip it down to the edge, which is kind of good. I wanted more red down in this corner anyway. Since it is a corner and we're gonna mix it with some blue. Right. So, anyway, just pick up puddles at this point with the frayed edge of your paper towel. And what I do is I just lay it there and I wait for the paint to stop moving up the paper towel. I don't like doing a lot of dab on the paper. I don't mind doing it on the masking fluid because it doesn't matter. But when you do it on the paper, you can get actual like marks. Here. Teeny little puddle up there. I'll take a little bit out of these hands. Okay. Now the scary part. We're going to go into our Antwerp blue. Because again, we're going for darks here. We're not going for lights. Okay, this is not the light part of our painting. That comes later. So I'm going to pick up some Antwerp blue. Start right up in the corner. Kind of bring it all the way across. If you haven't used it, this is a really beautiful dark blue. It's got much more life to it than Prussian or Indonesian blue. Photo out of the way. And again, you're going to bring some into the middle. Okay, don't just put it at the edges. I'm not looking for a rainbow effect of blue, red, yellow. So, and I can already tell I'm going to be doing this pour twice to get the depth and darkness I need. I'm going to put a little in this corner too. The corner, clean. Okay, I'm going to start tipping first. Oh, and then we're going to spray. Get all the lines. Yeah. Now, wherever you see dry spots, you want to get a little water in there where you do your second tilt. And you'll still have dry spots, but you just don't want a ton of them to fight. And here's why I don't put my paper on a board, okay? See down here, I've pretty well got a nice settled thing going on. Up here, a lot of stripes. So that's why I can just bend my paper without doing too much to the bottom and do my spraying up here. Oh, come on. It all off. It's really hot here today, and I don't know if that's what's causing my paper to stay so dry. Okay, so there's our first pour. All right, and it's got again, I'm going to go and do my cleanup and all that like I did, because now you're doing it even though we're not going to pour another color right away. We're going to wait for this to go bone dry, and then we're going to do this the 3 pours all over again. Okay, so that'll be our next step. But at the very end, I don't want a ton at the very end of this first pour, I don't want a ton of color on the masking. Then when you take it off, you can mark your paper, you know, it can actually leave a smudge mark of the color. So I try to clean off most of it. And again, not all of it, you don't have to get nitpicky, but just as much as you can get off easily. But see, we have some nice like blues and greens going on up here. We have nice dull colors going on down here, which I happen to love because that's a corner. It's a bottom corner, no less. So you really don't want a lot of action going on down there. I'm gonna just pick up puddles as I go too. Again, we have some dry spots down here, so just a nice quick mist. Soften it, doesn't have to be soaked. Too much water, not enough paint. Over tilting, tilting too soon, putting colors on too fast. These are all the no-nos of getting colorful pours. And this first one always looks kind of sloppy and weird, but it'll get better. Plus, like you might notice here, there's texture. I got to mention I did spatter with a toothbrush, some masking that kind of takes you up through there, just to give it kind of a magical kind of background, since it's just two objects. Gives it a little more interest to the background. Oh, into my S. Take the paint back in there. And you're going to see a big difference. And I got to tell you, most of the time I do two pours on this darkest part. It's very rare I get it as dark as I want the first time. This is way too light. So don't feel bad if your first pour doesn't look the way you want it to. Chances are you're going to have to probably do it twice to get the vibrant cut and depth of color and value that you want. So, all right, we're going to let this dry and then I'll be back for the first pour. All right, so this is all dry. Masking is still in place. We're going to do our second pour using the same three colors. So that's Quin Gold, Quin Rose, and Antwerp Blue. That's Daniel Smith, and Antwerp Blue is Winsor Newton, if you don't know that. The closest thing they have in other brands is probably like a phthalo blue green shade. As close as you're going to get to that phthalo blue, or the Antwerp blue, excuse me. Okay, so I'm putting in a lot of gold. Yep, a little pipette. All right, start moving the paint. Remember, this is before water. I have not wet my paper. Have let it completely dry from the last pour. Move it around a lot more. Okay. That is not working. Let me get my other bottle. So you can just see where it kind of veins away from the stripes. That's what you want to see, is just some softness. And you do want some water to go into the big blank areas too, so it has somewhere to travel. It doesn't just make another hard line. Checking for any little spots in my mix. Now let the big puddles go. Oh, and when I was telling you all the laws about pouring that are going to mess you up, another one is over tilting. Like, not right now because you only got one color on there, but if you keep tilting, because it's almost mesmerizing watching the paint move around like this, then you're going to also end up with neutral colors. So I'm not sure if I said that before, so I'm throwing it out there now. Okay. Now the second time, there's already color in a lot of these little areas within these shapes. So you just have to kind of be careful. And if you go over one, again, I just pull some off the masking with my finger and I put it back in there. So that. It's a big circle right here, top of the watch. Okay. Same thing up around here. Now, because the paper's already been saturated once in our last pour, you are see even this first pour. Look at all the big puddles we're getting. You're gonna have to pay attention to those because again, you go pouring in your rose right away, it's just all gonna mix together into a kind of an orange. Then you're gonna put in your green shaded dark blue, and it's gonna go gray or brown, more a neutral. I want that to happen. Right. And I also pour with fluid acrylics, which you can do. It's the exact same method. You throw some acrylic into your jars or your containers, and then you just add water. Well, it's fluid enough. You can pour with acrylics. Don't enter those into transparent shows. Want to get anybody in trouble. And one thing I do, which helps, if you are a person that works kind of in both, you like the aqueous acrylics, which look like watercolors, and you like watercolors, then what I do is on the back of the paintings, I actually mark in the corner an A, it's acrylic or even partially acrylic, or I mark, WC, knowing that it's all transparent. It's not like you're going to go to paint jail or anything, but you can have a painting shipped all the way out to California or something like to Watercolor West, and then oops. Which I guess for you all isn't too bad, but for me that's a long ways. Into painting just to get it back. And I'm taking my time, but look how much more vibrant this gold is right now than it was the first time. The first time it was almost like a pale yellow. So it's amazing, even with this pale background, how much more vibrant the color becomes on the second pour. Watch where those little dots are. Oop, there's the three. I just gold. There we go. Right. Big puddle forming here right in the middle. So pick that up. And I'm checking as I'm doing this. All of this I can still see shine on out here. So I know I'm still good to work on this and take my time. It means a lot of the pigment hasn't settled into the paper yet. Got time. Yeah. Well, okay. It's probably good enough to keep going. Everything here, I can still see damp everywhere. I am going to pick up a couple more puddles though that I see now that I sit back here. Get in here. Here. Now we're ready for a rose. So mark, when you watch me do this, mark that time how long it takes. And that's why I just really hate to see people panic when they're doing a pour because they think, oh, it's all gonna stay wet or I'm gonna be in trouble. That's what your water bottle is for anyway. So don't panic. Go up with the little rose into the corners now. I just don't want it to be like dead blue up there. I want to have some violets and whatnot up there. So bring it down a little bit more. This pass. And don't forget to get a little in the middle. All right. Now, upside down. This corner. Just gonna flip that corner. Good. Around again. Now we're gonna spray here. It's dry area. Right. And we'll flip this side. Even that side's kind of flat. Lines, get rid of those right up to top here. Okay. Now I'm gonna go right off the bottom corner. Kind of tap and shake. I get most of it off at this point. Okay. Now see how we have this beautiful now oranges and golds and reds and pinks and everything. So that's the beauty of being patient, letting it dry, and doing a second first pour. Okay, I'm going into my Antwerp now. Kind of concentrate this in the corners. A little bit in the middle. Out. Again, off everything going off one corner is usually a good idea. Kind of keeps everything moving. And really, this is such a large kind of blank spot. It's okay if that neutralizes a little bit as opposed to somewhere else. Okay. And just kind of get the lines not so linear. I'm going to just tilt a little this way and that way. Just a little, then off the corner again. Okay. There you go. What do you think of that? Much better. Much, much, much better. Okay, we're gonna go in and clean. Now you can take your time. You got your pours done. Take a breath. Big difference between first and second pour. That's what I'm telling you. It takes some patience because you gotta wait for it to totally dry, and I mean bone dry. If it's even moist a little bit, you're gonna go neutral. I can almost 100% guarantee it because I've done it many times thinking, well, that's close enough. Then I end up having to start all over again. Get out. Keep taking out all my dots. So anyway, I'm going to continue to clean this up and I will be back and we'll work on removing this masking and going into our second pour. All right, I've dried everything off really well. We're gonna start taking our masking off. My suggestion is to take all of it off and reapply where needed. 'Cause when you try to use a razor to cut or something like that, the masking, unless you're a real expert at it, it can leave marks in your painting, and damage the paper. So it's, it's not that difficult just to kind of take it all off and then put what you need back on your finish. So I'm just gonna peel all this off. Get here. If anybody's not familiar with this, this is it's called a masking lift or a pickup. Comes in real handy for taking masking off. When it's thick, you can just use it to pick up the edge, and like you saw me doing, just lift off a whole bunch. And if it's thinner or a small area like this circle right here, you can just use it to take it off by just rubbing it gently, always gently over your paper. Now I'm not taking off, remember the dots I said I used a toothbrush, go back and across. I'm not going to take that off now. I'm gonna leave that on to the very end because I want that little bit of white sparkle left if I need it. I've also masked off down here, you can see my signature. And that also will wait to the very end, and it's not gonna stay white. I never leave my signature white. I usually glaze over it with like a lighter color of what's back here. Okay. Now, I'm gonna go in and just straighten. As you can see here, there's, because I'm not a nitpicky masker either. So I'm gonna use this color that's right in here to kind of straighten out this line. Same thing over here. I'd use more of an orange to straighten out that line. And just go around and kind of clean up all of my lines before I put down masking for the next pour. So I will do that and I'll be back. Okay, everyone. Okay, so here's the second masking plan. It's where you can see the gray in here and in here, little bits around the edges and whatnot, which you'll see better once the paint hits the paper. But a couple notes before then is, like I said, make sure this first pour is vibrant and dark enough value-wise. It's going to keep getting darker because there's no masking here. Okay, there's only little spritzes that I've done here. I did go in and spritz again with the toothbrush over. It's the only time it does go over paint is when I want to have like a multi-level, like little starburst across here. So it has white and now it has the color of this, okay, underneath some of the spattering with the toothbrush. I have not, of course, my signature is still not lifted. These spots are not lifted. I just took off all the masking, reapplied for this second pour. Now, here's the next thing. I do not dilute my paint. So this is the exact same paint I poured the first time. The control of the water comes with your water bottle, okay, not with watering your paint down, because you keep watering your paint down and it just gets weaker and weaker. And we want to keep this a nice, strong, exciting pour with lots of vibrant colors. Okay, and this should almost be like a gaudy color here, because as we keep pouring over it, it's going to neutralize a little bit. So make sure this first vibrant pour is dark enough and really has some pow with the color. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go into my pipette. Again, no water on the paper. I'm going to go into my Quinn Gold. And I'm going to go over everything you did before. Don't just put it on these parts that have not been painted yet. that's a mistake a lot of people make. If you have to continue it so that this keeps getting darker and darker, which will make these, just be lighter naturally. You don't have to sit there and worry about your value changes so much because it'll just do it automatically. Getting out my pipette. Go. And now again, move before, even though this is bone dry paper, so it's not going to move much, but get it moving first. And have your water bottle handy. Just start spraying down all those hard edge lines that are everywhere. Do not soak the paper though. You don't want to see all this super shiny with tons of puddles in it, because that's too much, and then it'll be too light. You're going to lose the pow of the color. All right, there we go. Just looking for any hard edged lines. Yeah. Everything's pretty wet now. You can see all these have kind of feathered out a little bit. So I'm going to kind of go off this bottom corner and then dip it a little bit this way so that it's not just lines going off that way. If you turn it the opposite way to the opposite bottom corner, they'll come more into not being such a bunch of straight lines going off the end of the page here. And again, look for dry lines. You did not hit everything with that first spray. Or maybe you did and you don't have to do this. That's okay too. Okay. So again, off the bottom. And I'm also going to take it a little bit off the top. Off the top opposite corner. You can see all of it moving across that masking. I want some warmth up in this corner as well. Here we go. And again, I'm going to look up here, see these lines? Just soften them. I'm not going to be tilting anymore. I just want to soften those a little bit. Then we take our little squares, go around and do our little housekeeping. You got to watch because this is I actually went into the part we just painted. I do that. You don't want to wipe off everything you just did. And if you have a big puddle like this and you can't really see where you want to wipe off, just soak it up first and then wipe second. Look up the excess first. It's still moving. Righty. Again, this is giving time for it to soak into your paper. Want that gold color in there. It's very important. And that's the only real warmth we have, right? Everything else is pretty, the red is, it's not really warm. It's a bright red, but it's magenta. It's not a warm red. And as you can see already, see the second pour and our first pour, look how much darker because we went over the whole thing again. That's what I like about painting or pouring or even atomizing. I do paintings just with my atomizer, but I love doing it dark to light because I don't have to figure out my value shifts. It's going to automatically happen for me. So if you have trouble with value shifts and going, from value to value, then painting this way might be for you. It was for me. It definitely totally changed the way I painted. Okay, now in here we have lots of letters and little things, so I'm going to kind of go in here rather delicately and not wipe necessarily, just kind of dab to get some of the excess paint off of the masking. And down here I have a few little dry spots that go into the purple, so I'm just going to spray that edge. It's not going to affect anything up here. And just looking for excess paint There's a little too much. I don't want it going right into my magenta. Right there. Now, right, so down here. Okay, so there's our gold pour. I'm gonna go into my magenta, and again, over everything we've done before. Don't just put it in here, okay? But everywhere. Well, everywhere we want magenta anyway. It doesn't have to be throughout the entire thing, but we don't want to like cover up all our gold or anything, so don't go too crazy. Now our paper's already wet, so this should be a little easier. The first thing I'm gonna do is go off this corner, because see how there's a dry spot up there? That's a good spot to go off of. Spray a little bit and go off the edge. Yeah, if your edges are dry, that's gonna act almost like a masking where the paint just won't pass by. So make sure you go over that to water. Okay, hold this so you can see it. Just going off some of the corners. Right. And you're gonna look at this part and go, wow, that's like some fire engine red and stuff. But keep in mind, I'm doing one more pour with Antwerp, and that is gonna knock some of this back. So you want this to be pretty vibrant. Otherwise the Antwerp is just gonna kill it. Okay. Now I'm going off the bottom corner again. Let it all run off. Now that it's nice and wet. Tap, whatever we gotta do to get it to come off. Take. All right, there we go. Cleanup time. And again, it's hard to see when it's soaking wet like this, so just kind of be gentle, go through and just kind of dab. Because if you do a big white, chances are, like I did at the beginning, I went into this that I wanted paint to stay in. So you can always wipe it back in with your finger, but you don't want to do that too much because then it's going to start to look like, again, it could actually neutralize it if you do that too much. If you keep wiping color back in with your finger. So you want the pour to do the work. Okay. Right there, I hit that dot. So I'm going to go here where there's deep paint, drop it into that dot. Okay, and there's some shadows here coming from the hands, so I'm going to be careful over in that area and just touch up some of the deeper water. Right. And over to our compass, same thing. There's lots of letters and marks in here, so just go gently. I already did it, went into something right there. You'll see it as soon as you do it because it'll pop back light like the paper, so. This is all just, it's basically about controlling your values. You don't want spots to stay too light because then they're not going to come back when you do your next pour. There's one more after this even. So you got to be careful, make sure that everything here is kind of even on this pour. Not exactly the same, like there's more gold up here, down here there's more red. It's not exactly the same color, but they should be very similar in values. If you were to hold up a value chart against them, it should be similar in value. And just picking up puddles. No. I don't know how hard it is to see on this video, but when you're sitting here, you can definitely see the puddles because they just come through as deeper and they're kind of raised, almost like a raindrop off your paper, so you know where they are. Don't think because you can't maybe see them on this video that you won't be able to see them when you do your own pours. You will. It's me. You will see the puddles. And I don't, like I said, I don't take them off because I necessarily don't like blooms and things. I happen to love blooms and other ways of painting. I take them off because I don't want to mix in with the next color too much. It's going to kill any spontaneity of color. So taking them off for that reason, not because I don't like puddles necessarily. There. And again, you're giving the paper time to kind of breathe and take in all that paint. Okay, so this is the last pour we're going to do with Antwerp. When we go into our next pour, we're going to be using cobalt, which is when I get to my lighter values, I go to cobalt. Okay, here we go. Right up in the corner. Down in this corner. Again, always a little in the middle. Okay, leave my cut. And pour, or and tilt, I should say. Now here at this point, I'm going to want to kind of tilt like this, using just lifting and letting the corner of the page go. I don't want to get too much blue back into here because I don't want it all to be black. I just want some of all the colors represented, including greens and violets. And now straight up to the top. I have this kind of green stripe. The only reason I don't like it is it's kind of mimicking the top of the clock. I don't want that. So I'm going to just put some water to that. And tilt again. Let it run off the top. Again, off to this corner. Okay. And now I'm just checking for dry spots and whatnot. There's a little up there, a little there. So much down here. This looks good. See, now our colors are still vibrant, but they keep getting darker and darker for the parts that were already poured. That's exactly what you want to see. Cleanup time again. And again, if you see it didn't get into some of these little areas that are surrounded by masking, use your finger or brush, whatever you like. Some people don't like to touch their paper. Just to get some paint in there. I just took it off. And you will too. You're going to take some of these off by mistake. You just can't see everything. The light's shining very bright right now, and you know, it's hard to kind of see. Everything's very wet. Getting fun though, huh? Isn't it? I mean, I just love pouring. I find it very relaxing, especially once you realize you don't have to rush. You can take your time. All you have to do is get one pour done, so the 3 colors. And then if you feel, okay, I feel stressed, I need a break, take a break, because guess what? You're done. You're done with that pour. So, you know, clean up your edges and all that, and pick up your puddles and go have dinner or something, or relax. But don't stress out over it. It is, to me, probably, oops, I went into the shadow. My little hands. It's really not strenuous. It is a lot of fun. It's a great way to get different effects, especially like something like this where you have 2 very simple objects. If I was to paint this with a brush, it would be a decent painting. It would be a rendition of a compass and a clock. Okay, but it's not going to be as exciting as when it's poured. Just picking up puddles. But look, I mean, look at this color down here. Look at this juicy, heavy blue violet going into red violet. then it goes up into here into these oranges and greens. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do that with a brush, but it's not the same thing. And pouring has become very popular. In fact, a few of my students have even gotten into their first national shows with pouring, so it makes me very, very proud. But there are subjects, of course. A lot of times my students pick better subjects than I do. You know, I'm picking one to teach a class, whereas they pick one that means something to them, so it's pretty cool. All right, so there we go. There's our clock and compass. That is only our second value pour. The first one we had to do twice to get it that dark. Excuse me. This one, you know, we just had to do once and we're done. And then we're gonna let this totally dry. All the masking comes off, final masking goes on for a third and final pour. So there you go. And I will be back after this dries to show you more.
Would this be a good time to take a quick break and ask any questions?
Okay, so this is all dry. In fact,
It would be.
Okay. All right, so if
Yeah,
anybody-
please shut her up, please.
So if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask Laurie. And we'll spotlight her out there also. Anybody? Are you asleep? Are you awake? I'm enjoying it. Yeah? All right. Well, should we just continue then if there's no questions?
Sure.
Yes,
Eric?
continue,
Yes,
continue.
all right.
Well, let me just ask a quick question. This is Vicky, and I don't know if I need to stop sharing. I'll just leave it as it is. When you're tilting your paint, are you tilting it onto a towel? And are you laying your painting right back on that wet paint?
Oh, I'm to my my surface, you mean, where it collects
Yeah.
the paint?
Yes.
Yeah, my mat. Yeah, because it absorbs into that. So the back of the painting is sometimes more interesting than the painting itself because there's a
Okay,
whole
that I guess,
abstract
yeah, that's
back
right.
there. But yeah, I lay it back down there, but when I want it to, when I need it to dry, then I have a second mat behind me that's dry. And I lay it on the floor there so it can actually dry out and get ready for the next, masking and pour.
Okay, and then on the workshop, are you recommending either a quarter sheet or half sheet, or just leave it up to the individual?
They're both half sheets.
Half sheets? Okay.
You don't go, my advice is don't go smaller than that. Small pours on pages this big are very disappointing.
Okay.
So at least half a sheet. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
All right, that's all I had. Anybody else? All right, I'll start it again.
Okay.
Overnight, and I'm going to just do our favorite part as watercolor artists, and let's take off the masking. And as you notice, every time, I might have already said this, but every time we remask, it's less and less and less. So you start out with more masking at the very beginning and less as you go, which I think is better because, like I said, you're not laying it on paint, a surface that's already been painted. You don't have that danger of lifting it up. My mistake. You're lifting up your paint. Right. Just getting out these little lines first and get to the big inner part here. Pull some off. Whenever I can, I like to pull it off because it's not as rough on the paper as when you scrub with one of these things or even with your fingers. Because even with your fingers, you're putting oil on paper, especially if you're rubbing really hard for a long time. So I use this to get up the edges and whatnot, but not take it all off if I can help it. As soon as I put it on too thin and then the masking fluid, and then I have to scrub at it to get it off. But I always try to remember to give a good application of masking fluid. Okay. Got a little piece here. No. So you kind of get an idea of where we're going with this. And again, I just take it all off. Even I mean, I know some of this is going to go on in somewhat the same place, but here's my thoughts on that. And that is just getting out these little dots and things. And always feel with your fingers, make sure you didn't miss anything. Okay, so let's say I put my masking fluid back on this white line here, okay, because I want it to stay light for the next pour. If I put it on, I would put it on just slightly inside this shape, leaving some edges ready to catch paint. Then it kind of softens it, so it's nice, you know, it takes a little bit of that graphic look away from it. So that's why I used to try to keep it, you know, on where I knew it was going to go back anyway. And then I thought, you know, it just gives another transition of value. So it's not a bad thing. And it's a lot easier to just take it off and put it back on than it is to try and cut part of it off. Like people use razor blades and such. And I'm like, no, that's pretty time consuming. It's a lot easier just to get a brush and slap on some masking. For me anyway. If it's quicker for you the other way, then by all means, go ahead. Everybody's got their way, right? Birds there. Here's an example. Okay, that last pour, I took all of this off. Just put on this little white right here on the edge. So now it's got the dark background, or here, I should say the dark, going into this next lighter pattern into the next one. So it just gives a little more of a transition. So it's the best way to explain it. Need to mask our next section. I'll show a couple pieces as I mask here to see get an idea of how I do that. When I talk about too much masking, not enough masking. Feeling around here, make sure I got it off. Be done. Okay. Down to the leg of this I just kind of made up. If you notice in the photo, it's got this weird kind of, it's partially cut off, but it's like this weird like ball that it's sitting on. And I tried that first and I just didn't like it, so I gave it a different shape. It's the beauty of painting versus photography. Alter subjects quite a bit. Okay, again, I'm going to leave my signature covered, dots and dots covered. Everything else comes off, so we can work on our transitions. Okay. All right. Oh, and actually, first, before we do that even, we have to kind of go around and fix things. You're basically going to look at, let me see something I want to fix. I can show you exactly. Okay,
shadows of the hands here. There's a break in it right here. This is way too big. It should be closer to the center thing here. So into the hub or whatever you call it. So we're going to take that color. Okay, and since it's a limited palette, it's pretty easy. I know it's mostly my magenta. A little bit of Quinn Gold. Touch of Antwerp. Remember, we didn't put much in the middles. Okay. Okay, so right here. Circle. This is just fixing masking mistakes. And they're not really mistakes. They're just, you know, you can only be so accurate. I'm going to color in that under the 9 again also, just to, so it'll pop back darker. Okay, I'm just going to go around and I'm going to fix little things like that. Not going to make you watch me do all of them, but just make sure like you stick with the local color, whatever it is. Like don't suddenly go painting in, you know, Antwerp in an area like, you know, like this orange down here. Okay, you want to keep it in the same neighborhood where the color is. Okay, so I'm not going to make you watch me do this. It's like watching grass grow, but I'm going to go around and just fix any edges. And then I'll be back and we'll do a little masking. All right, so this is all, did all my little fixes. Now it's dry and we'll do a little masking. And I'll go into more of this during the actual workshop, but let's see, kind of get a glimpse of it now. And so I'm going to show you on a larger area because that's obviously where you would use this technique of more masking instead of less. So let's get out our photographs so we don't lose our way. Now our next target dark is going to be this light gray that's between lighter gray and then the next darkest dark, which is the rings and all that we've already done. So just keep that in front of you. What I do is I load my brush, okay, and I'm going to put it into the white area we want to save and drop a bead like that of masking. So, and I'm just going to push that bead along. I'm not brushing per se. I'm just kind of pushing that bead along and then picking up more masking. And you might feel like, oh, I'm wasting so much masking doing it this way, but your painting is going to look a lot better because it's not going to be so tore up from all that rubbing and scrubbing. So that's our goal, is good painting. It's not to save our masking fluid. I'll just follow that around. And again, it's a fairly thick application, not like you dumped it on there from the cap, but just, you know, it's a nice thick heavy application, so you can peel it off easy later. Easier. And I'm saving these little detail areas for when I have my smaller brush, so as much of them. Okay, so. And every, like, I'd say like 3 to 6 inches or so squared of what I've done so far. I'm not quite there yet, but let me put it. That's good. I don't use dish soap on my brush or anything like that, but what I do is let's say this is a little bit more. Say I got down to the hub here of the clock. Okay, so what I do is I take my brush and I put it right into the bottom of my bucket and I'm scrubbing the brush against the bottom. These are masking brushes, you don't have to be delicate. Then I have like a rough shop towel, it's just a rough terry cloth towel that you use in like a garage. The nap is a little rougher than what you would use in your home.
And then I just rub it onto there the same way, just really, really rough. And this is perfectly clean now. There's not a bit of masking on it, and you're ready to go again. So every so often, even though this can be kind of time consuming, if you got music or a movie on, you can kind of lose your space and time. Just keep that 3 to 6 inch rule in your head. To stop, clean up real good, and then you can move on. My masking brushes last me years, not months, not days. They last a long time. And I just buy the cheap brushes I can find online. Each one costs like 50 cents. So I don't care, you know, that if I ruin it or whatever, which I don't plan to, but it can happen to anybody where you can forget about it. Especially if you're teaching, you can leave your masking brush unattended and all of a sudden it's like, whoops. Okay, so I'm going to clean that up. So that's the idea of dropping a bead of masking. You're just pushing the bead along until, and as soon as you start to feel the texture of that paper, pick up more masking. Okay, this is a cold press, so you can kind of feel that with your brush, and then you know it's time to pick up some more. Okay, so I'm going to continue my masking again, too much like watching grass grow, and I'll be back. Right, so I let my masking all dry. You can kind of see where it is here, where the light gray is in certain places. And now we're going to do our final pour, which is the only difference is that we're still using full color. I haven't added water to any of these, but now we're using cobalt as opposed to Antwerp because we're in the lighter version painting. So we will first make sure our water is full. Okay, it is. Always check that first because you don't want it sitting here while you run somewhere to fill up your water. So go into our gold first. Kind of keep this in your, you know, this is the last pour, so kind of make it, you know, stay in where your center of interest is, which is the clock and the compass. I also did spritz again with the toothbrush up here and up here, just to get, again, more depth into those little sparkles so they're not just all white. All right, so we're going to start pouring, or tilting, I should say, corner to corner. Down. But again, this is really, really dry paper, so you're going to need some water. Get it all moving. But I always move the paint first, just because it seems to work better. If I spray and then move, it tends to all coagulate together so fast, especially when you get into your other colors. You're like, oh no, I wish I hadn't done that, because it just, everything starts to look gray. Pretty little lines from a little spritz. Good. And we'll tilt again, corner to corner, lower left, right. And again, here's some where it's kind of, I'm just looking for any hard lines. I just don't want those. Now, when you're getting to your third pour, there's not a heck of a lot to clean up anymore. Most of it is unmasked, and we're trying to get paint on it. So you got to be even more delicate when you go in here. Really look for that. It's almost like a light green when you do your gold. There's a light green color because the masking dries in kind of a teal blue or a turquoise blue. When you're not sure, just skip it. Don't try to, you know, take off the paint there. It'll come, it actually comes more and more into view as it dries a little bit, whereas the water dissipates a little bit. But you can also pick up puddles for that one. That's a lot of paint and water flying up that paper towel. And like I've said all along, this part isn't real exciting, but if you want a colorful, gorgeous pour, it's mandatory. So can't skip it. You know, if it's boring to you, turn on your favorite song or something and enjoy the music while you do this, something. Because I know a lot of people who skip this part of cleaning up puddles and cleaning up masking. And those are the people that are not happy with their pours. Go figure. So you have to, this is a necessary step. It's a lot easier to see the masking once you have it on here for a few minutes. But the paint starts to separate from the masking a little bit. See a little bit better where you're going. Okay. So there you go. That's gold pour. Now we're gonna grab our pipette, which I've already cleaned out. Went to our rose or our magenta, whatever you happen to be using. And again, I keep these darker colors up towards the corners, but bring a little bit here. That or now up here I could see this is really dry. I mean, that paint is just kind of sitting there. It ain't going anywhere. It's not even feathering out a little bit. So I am going to break my roll and get a little spray up there before I get going. Same down here in the lower right corner. It's just kind of sitting there in very bright, strong stripes. Like it hasn't moved at all. Now again, since we're looking for lighter colors here, we're going to put in a little more water than we did in the previous pours. But again, it's better than keep watering these down and then pouring them because you're still going to have to spray. You still have stripes. So if you have watered down paint and you're spraying, you're not going to get these colors. Okay, so that's something to think about. Oh. I'm just going to tap, get some of this off. Right. Looks like a real mess right now, which means you're doing good. That's nice about pouring. And it looks like a hot mess. That means you're doing okay. Again, just be very careful when you do this initial removal of the masking or of the paint on the masking. Really hard to see, and the darker the colors get, the harder it is to see. So, fine. Pick up puddles first, that'll help. Here's a big, huge puddle. Watch what I mean when you see it traveling. And pick it up when it stops, when it can't take anymore. Here. Okay. 12. And see, as you clean it up, it starts to look better, but it's going to be scary. I mean, in places, so don't let that stop you. It's scary because it just looks so like devil's red right now. I mean, it's crazy red. But we haven't poured our blue yet. And guess what's going to calm all this down? Cobalt. I keep sitting back and I'm looking for these ripples in the paper that are catching these puddles. And that's where I'm shooting to want all of those gone before I go into my cobalt. That would be a mess. Well. Grabbing a bunch of papers that look again, because they all tend to regather into these low spots. You're gonna have to go over them a few times before they stop doing that. Then you know you're ready for your cobalt pour. You just don't want to see these canals of this dark red color. They have to all. There. Here, dark spot. Good. Okay. So we're finally going into our cobalt to give this lighter, different shade. Right. Over our middle guy a little bit. Gonna cool some of that down because it's so hot. Very, very, very red. Again, even put some into the little areas. Clean out your pipette. Paper is plenty wet, so don't. Here we go. Again, I always kind of go corner to corner. Then kind of up and down to get it to spread this way, so it's not just lines. I want it to fill in a little bit. Up. Okay. See how that kind of really toned all this hot red down. That's what you want. That's what the cobalt is absolutely perfect for. And I'm going to go and just pick up puddles. I see some dry spots starting here a little early, so I'm just gonna spritz over them, and I'm literally moving my water. I'm not just spraying. I don't want a big puddle there. I just want to mist it. Down here in the corner. And just pick up puddles, puddles, puddles. Also, a big tip on pouring is it's better to let it air dry. Not just because of the puddles, but you want these colors to meld and mix on the paper. And if you start using a hair dryer or even a heat gun, because they also have a little air push, you're going to start moving the paint into areas that they maybe wouldn't have mixed in naturally. And you can kind of tell, because again, it'll kind of gray out areas instead of having all this luscious color. So anyway, we're going to let this dry. Next time I see you, we'll take the masking off and we'll be ready to finish this project up. A little brush work. All right, so here we are. Everything is dried from our last pour. This is the final removal of the masking. So off comes the masking. Kind of nice working with two circular objects because you just kind of have to go around and make sure you've taken up all the masking piece by piece. And you have a big cityscape or something like that, which I've poured also. It's a lot more you have to watch and be careful of because it's just the whole page could have masking on it, different places. Okay. So there's our mask removed just from our two objects again. I didn't take off my signature or the sparkle up here yet. At this point, I'm just going to basically use a brush finish. And a photo. Here we go. Let's finish. Okay, so basically we're just going to kind of brush in some details to finish up. And then we'll be ready to take off our signature and our sparkles. Okay, now the inside of these are not white, as you can see from the photo. The only thing that's really white is the spot on the clock, which is right here. Okay, and there's a couple tiny little white spots on this over here, but not many. But you can't see the it was cut off, but the actual ring that comes above the compass and the little ball, so those will be highlighted with some white. But there's very little white left, so we're going to just kind of mix up on our palette some of the mud that we've made. You know, we've cleaned up our masking little faux pas. I'm just going to mix all that up into kind of a brown mud. And we're going to start just cutting back on some of this. Kind of leave a glow at that edge, but you know, not have the whole side of it glowing. That's cobalt. Okay, this one's a little cool. All right, and then down here, all of the sparkle that's in this leg, it's a little too much, as you can see from the photo or from the video here. So we're gonna just kind of knock back some of it. So let's look. It's a little cooler and not quite so white down at the bottom. So we'll do that. Top. Part down this here. Oh. Right, so that doesn't become as important now. You're looking back up at the clock face. And the reason I kind of worked my way in, I mean, I know these are my star subjects,
So I'm gonna kind of work my way into those. I'm gonna kind of push everything back down here, down near the bottom, let you start to look up top again. Back here. Okay. Here's a little mistake I made, which some artists hate to do during a demo. I actually prefer it. It kind of shows what a real process is, as opposed to, oh, look how perfect I paint. Okay, number 4, I forgot to mask off the middle. Okay, you know, basically the hole in the floor. So we're gonna I'm just using a flat brush and a little clean water. There you go. Just bring it back. See, nothing to panic over. Easy peasy. So back to my painting. Now I want to put a nice glaze over all of this white because it's way too much, except for this. I'm gonna leave this open where the bright color is, and I'm gonna definitely go to more of a cool color because everything's so warm. I think it needs kind of a cool color in the middle. So I'll start over here away from the tree. Paint brown. Yeah, it's just kind of a warm gray I mixed with the mud in my palette. Warm gray, or some people call it a light brown. Wanted to keep some of the warmth because if you just went totally cobalt blue in here, it would look weird because everything around it is so warm. So you have to always consider, always think of your neighborhood. That's the way I like to put it. Always think of the neighborhood where you are. Don't go too far away from that because then it kind of starts to look odd. Okay, now we're coming up to the 3. I'm just going to leave a little roundabout outside of that circle. Okay, and the 3 itself in here is colored. This is gray. Lots of mist. Then out here, around that circle of light, I just like to leave a little outside of that oval circle of light next to the 3. Color some ends because that'll give you something to scrub off and make it to soften it, make it look better. Down around the 4. We don't have to go into the 4 because I already had to scrub that out, so it's already kind of this value. If you look, it's very similar to the value I'm painting. So if I was to go in there, would that make it too dark? Oh, 6, 6. Um, seven, dark. Then up to the 8, 9 here. Okay, we're gonna wait for those to wait for all that to dry, and then we'll go in and put in our little lines on the clock. Because see, we still haven't done these lines in between the circles. Now up here on the dials, the same light colors over the 9. Just bring it up.
Right. Good for the clock. And now down to the compass. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to kind of paint in, because nothing in this is white. There's a couple spots that are lighter, but none of them are white. So there's really nothing to save over here. We're just going to kind of paint in everything that we've missed in our pores. Dim it back a little bit. Okay. And same here at the top of the, I always call it the hub when it's the middle of something. So the hub of the compass. Back these little highlights at the edges of this compass. They just don't need to be super bright white. Okay. And name up here, up of the ring of the compass. That I'm going to actually scrub out as one piece. I want to have at least one piece of white in that compass. So, all right. So that is done. I'm going to dry this and be right back. Okay, so this is all dry. My heat gun, we're ready to go. Now we're going to start putting in some details. Okay, some other important details. Again, I'm going kind of into my mud. I'm going to add a little blue. My mud is running very brown because of how warm the painting is. So yeah, you have to think of that. And then we're going to put in our lines. So there's three, they're all gone by now. There's three between each circle. So 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Get them all in there. Normally, I don't like to lose lines and things I'm doing, but in this situation, I mean, it's just little tiny straight lines, so it's complicated. We can do this. To the 8, 2, and the 9. There's 3 again. And okay, that finishes up our clock face. Peak done. Turn it over and see what else it might need. All right, so I'm gonna grab my This is just a flat watercolor brush. Okay, so it's just this little flat, not super short hair, because I really don't want to disturb my paper that much. But it's a flat, and I use that to do my scrubbing. So we're gonna go right into the middle with this white spot over the 3 and scrub out past it. So go into the middle, scrub out past. Scrub, 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 scrub. And then you get that nice soft glow. Okay, instead of a white circle, not what you want. Okay, and down here at the bottom, also I put one here. Bottom of this kind of made up bottom of the clock. So go into the white, out past. Here you go. Get a little glow now. You can do the same thing when you get to these little lines in this thing, like maybe join a couple of them together. And just so there's just a glow and not so much, not so much straight line. Same in here. This very much, if you look at the photograph, that is a glow. That is not a white line or a white shape. Scrub into that. Yeah. Okay, same up here. We'll do a couple just so the top and bottom are related. One more right here. Goes down towards the compass. Right. See how pretty that looks? It really looks like light is shining on the 3, and that's why you can't see the whole 3, and it's minimal work to make that happen. It's not difficult, not hard. Now over here, okay, I just want to do it up here at this top, where the ball of the compass is, the handle. And I'm going over all 4 little shapes I saved at the same time. I want to glow between them. Okay. Like so. Anywhere else? Right on the side of this, there's a little white spot. Put it up there. And it's not going to be white, it's just going to be lighter, shade lighter. Give a little glow around that point. And there. Right. Happy with that. And now we're going to take off all of our sparkle we left back here that we've been waiting to take off through several layers. Now I use my finger for little spots like this because using the lift can actually disturb the paint and leave streaks in it. And obviously you can't peel it up with your hands. It's teeny tiny little spots. Just keep rubbing until you don't feel any resistance anymore, and that means you got them all. And up top, same thing. And I love, some of them are colored, some of them are white, the pure white of the paper. Kind of gives the whole painting some sparkle again. I'm not going to say never, because I never say never, but normally you don't want to kill all the white of your paper, unless it's a very, very dark, moody painting. So this is a good way to preserve some of that. Curve these back a little bit. Here we go. And then I'm going to take off my signature. And now I need my pickup, which I think I dropped on the floor. Okay. And the reason I use the pickup for your signature is you want to get every bit of masking off, or else it's not going to look like a signature. You're going to miss pieces. It's going to look funny. Okay, so there's my signature.
Now, I never leave my signature as white as my whitest part of my painting. So take brush. I'm not adding any paint. I'm just going to take the paint around my signature and bring it into my signature. So. Okay, just to knock it back a little bit compared to the rest of the painting. So here we are, and I've already decided I'm going to name this painting Where and When Compass Clock. I think that's a nice title. It's short, easy to print in a program, so they appreciate when you do that. So just Where and When is a good title. So I hope you all enjoyed your time. I enjoyed my time doing this for you, and I look forward to our workshop together.
Well, that was awesome. So Laurie, start to finish, how long did
Mhm.
that take? I know we saw it in segments, but this is Susan. So how, start to finish, what does that take?
Well, I did let everything dry naturally. I didn't use a dryer or anything like that. So dry time and masking, this was like what was it, like an hour 45 or something? Or it was probably about I don't know, maybe 4 hours altogether. It's
Altogether?
only a half a sheet. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I set it down when I'm done in my studio for the day, so I don't consider that work time while it's laying there drying and I'm sleeping. It's not work time, but yeah, altogether probably that with the extra masking time and drying.
Wow, wow. Was anybody have any questions or comments for Laurie? I think it was, yeah, I'm amazed, but anybody else? I know we're
Yeah.
getting things in the chat. Say your
Thank-
name.
My name is Aya,
Mhm.
and I thank you very much, Laurie. That was very informative. So what
Well,
would you
thank you. I
say,
appreciate that.
what would you suggest for beginning pouring painter to start with? I heard you mention you could do buildings. Can you do mountains? Can you do trees, people?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I even have poured portraits. So
Oh,
you can
wow.
pour, yeah, you can pour anything. First of all, start with a subject that you're happy with, that means something to you. That always matters.
Mhm.
Make sure it's as simple as possible. So in other words, maybe before you go to the mountains, start with a tree or a
Mhm.
little strand of trees. Then keep your palette limited. Feel free to use mine. It's a nice limited palette. It rarely gives you mud. They're all very, except for the cobalt, they're all very translucent, transparent colors. So they play well together. And then just like I said, don't rush it. Have fun. Take your time. Unless you're
Mhm.
doing it plain or outside in the summer, you got plenty of time between each pour of each color. So just do that. And if
Okay.
you want to send me something you've poured, I'd be happy to look at it. Just mention that you were part of this demo.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All
That's
righty.
that's very generous. Thank you, Laurie.
Yeah, sure. I love looking at art, so to me, that's just a bonus.
There you go. Any other
Yeah.
questions? Comments? Well, I think the video process that we just saw is also going to be how the workshop will go. There'll be segments that Laurie has pre-recorded, and then we'll take breaks intermittently so that people have time to paint. And the supply list and everything that you need is on the website. So if you have any questions about that, you can shoot an email to Vicky and Debbie, who are going to be the coordinators for this workshop.
And if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet, I hope you're encouraged to do so now. Go sign up today.
Laurie,
It is fun. It's very fun, trust me.
Laurie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It was very interesting. I thought it was a very successful painting. And
Oh, thank you.
I learned a lot. I asked a
That's-
question in the beginning, but I kind of figured out what you did. So
Okay.
That's Alan Geller talking. So you
Hi.
can always
Hi,
ask the
Alan.
question.
yeah, you painted the clock. The first thing you did was painted the faces, right? And then you painted the mask over that.
No,
No.
no. I masked around all those numbers and everything. I did the face of the clock and the compass and masked around those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I said during this, which we'll go into a lot more in the workshop, is what I like about this, and I'm going to tell a quick story about Linda Baker because I love her and she's a friend of mine and she's in my book, so she owes me this. But anyway, she that's how I learned to pour was through Linda, and she pours light to dark like most people do. But by the time you're done in that process, almost your entire painting is covered in masking fluid because you're only saving those few little lights at the end. And I love the process and I love her to death, but she takes off her masking and there's this glorious painting of clothespins. Remember when she used to do the clothespins? And it was gorgeous. The rest of us take off our, not everybody, but most of us took off our masking, and there's this muted, yucky marks in it, kind of weird paintings that we had to basically paint over. So that's why I came up with this system, because you never have to put masking on a painted surface. In other words, it only goes on white paper time after time after time throughout the process. So you're never, because that's what it was when we took off our masking, it lifted off a lot of the pigment. I don't know how she does it. I tell everybody, and I've told her I say this all the time. I always tell everybody I think she's a witch. I think she's magical because I have no idea how she does it. But then do that. When you take a workshop, if something doesn't suit you, then take whatever little bit from that artist that you did enjoy and maybe try to find a way to tweak it for your paintings and make it work for you. Because there's enough Linda Bakers out there, enough of John Salmonins out there and all of them. So, that's how you get your styles, by picking and choosing from each workshop what works for you, because you're never going to pick the same things I pick or that Susan might pick or Vicky. So that's a great way to find your style, is by picking out little things and adding it to what you're already doing.
I understand better now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And Laurie's right. That's what we say when people take workshops. You're not going to paint ever like the artist who is conducting the workshop. But as Laurie said, take something away and put it into your painting or what you're doing. So I think there's a lot here to take away for anybody. So if you have the courage to sign up and take this, I think you'll be really, really happy. So
You will, by the time we're done in those 3 days, you will be pouring with a lot more confidence. And one of my students who's in here, I don't know if she's still here, but Kate, who is in here, she has actually gotten into big shows with her poured paintings using this method. So
Caitlin,
poured
you
is kind of a
can
neat.
unmute.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is she still here? Hi,
Yeah,
Kate.
I'm
she's
still
here.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hiding in
she's
the
been very
corner as
successful.
usual. Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Caitlin, are you taking the
So,
workshop?
Yeah, I am. I've
Okay.
been catching up with stuff. That's why I got here today.
Okay.
Yes,
oh, good.
it'll be
It'll
fun.
be, it'll be interesting to see your paintings then, what you've done with Laurie's method. Yeah.
Oh, precious.
She's done some beauties. Yeah, really beautiful. And she's done portraits. So see, you
Oh.
can pour portraits. Yeah.
All right.
So.
Well, it's 3:30 now. Vicky, Debbie, do you have anything else to tell people for the workshop?
I don't have anything except sign up if you haven't.
Sign up
Okay.
and just remember the dates are September 23rd, 4th, and 5th.
And
So
about a week out from that, they'll get an email with all of the information to remind them and the demo link or the Zoom links.
Right. Yeah, I'll send
Oh, and
I'll send the Zoom link out a couple of times just so it's convenient for everyone.
I
Laurie?
do have one. I'm
Go ahead.
glad I thought of this. In this video, it's hard to see where I'm masking because of the white paper and the light gray masking. you will get for each step of each project a masking
Mm.
plan. So in other words, you'll have it in hard copy. I've hit up the contrast so you can see right where the masking is, and it'll be a lot easier. So I don't want you to be discouraged by that because you maybe couldn't see it so good today. You'll have that before we get to that project. You'll have all the masking steps. Okay.
So the interim masking, you know, once you take off the first masking, then people will have to do that again. So, but for the first
Mhm.
day, should they have their initial masking ready to go?
That would be a good idea. I mean, I
Yeah.
am going to actually do it on the line, but you have to wait for it to dry. But we could take a little break then. So it's up to
Okay.
you. But you'll have the masking plan before we start. So those of you that aren't so sure about masking can maybe take your time and get it done. And other people can just follow along with me and have their masking plan sitting there. So
Okay.
it'll work.
So we'll be
Okay.
doing, you'll be doing 2 paintings as
Mhm.
well during the workshop. So when one's drying,
Right.
you can do the other one. I think that's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll be alternating. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's
hope-
it for
I hope you
today.
give it a
Unless,
try.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lori. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Lori.
you.
It was great.
Thank you, everybody.
See you in a little over a week.
All right. And by the way, the 25th is my birthday, so I expect a little song from everybody.
Oh, of course.
Which day? Wait a minute. Which day?
The 25th.
Oh, the 25th. Okay. Yep. We'll do it. We're on
All
it.
right. I need a little song. All right. Thanks, everybody. I
All right,
appreciate you
thank
being
you.
here.
All right.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
All right.